Good afternoon and welcome everybody to this session organized by the Parimal and Pramod Chaudhary for Learning and Teaching, PPCCLT. I hope all of you have heard of it, at least have now come to know of it. It's about a 5-year-old center in the institute. The goal is to do some activities to promote effective teaching and effective learning. I remember seeing some of you in TA workshops and previous events. So I'm Sadhana Murthy, I'm the current head of PPCCLT. I'm also a faculty member in the Education Technology Interdisciplinary Program. So today it gives me great pleasure to welcome the panelists who have kindly agreed to take your questions and share their experiences on how to interview for faculty positions in academic institutions. And we particularly wanted to invite the PhD research scholars, especially the ones close to graduating and the postdocs, those who have gone through interviews themselves. So a warm welcome to our three panelists, Professor Malik, Professor Manohar and Professor Prajesh Prasad. I will now hand it over to Dr. Vinita Shah. She's the Senior Research Scientist in PPCCLT. She'll explain how the panel will be set up and what we are going to do. We were really overwhelmed with your responses. We changed rooms twice to accommodate the whole crowd, and this also means that we have a large number of questions for the panelists, and Vinita will lead us through how to efficiently go through them. Over to you.
Okay, good afternoon everyone. So for the session today, we have very carefully chosen a mix of faculty who is new as well as experienced and coming from diverse disciplines. So introducing the panelists and moving ahead, we have Professor Roop Malik, who is a faculty at IIT Bombay at the Department of Biosciences and Bioengineering, and he is also a DBT Wellcome Trust India Alliance Senior Fellow, who's experienced in faculty recruitment. Then we have Professor Swati Manohar, who is a faculty at Civil Engineering, and she is going to provide perspective about giving as well as taking interviews. Then we have Professor Prajesh Prasad, who is an alum from an interdisciplinary department in IIT Bombay, and he has joined from an IDP as a core faculty in Flame University, Pune. So with that, I will request all the three panelists first here to come here and join us. And I would request Professor Prajesh Prasad to get started.
All right, good evening everyone. Thank you all for joining, and I'm really overwhelmed seeing so many people, but I'm not surprised, right? Because for many PhD students, I think this is one of the burning questions which we have, right? What after PhD? How should I apply for faculty interviews, right? And although Vinita introduced me as a faculty, I identify myself more with you, right? Because I I became a faculty member only last year, not even a few months back, around 10 months back, right? So I am more of although I've crossed the other side, I identify more as a student compared to the other faculty. So this talk is more of my own reflections about how I went about preparing for the interviews, what I got right, what went wrong, how I could have improved. So I tried to distill all of that through this talk. And since it's mostly from my experience, my background, so it may not apply to all of you, right? But I hope that many of the things are generalizable to many in the audience. So I also would like to thank the center for organizing this, and I feel it's a very important thing, especially for PhD students. So before I get started, I'll just I'll give a brief background about myself so that you all will know where I'm coming from and what my experience have been, and based on that you can maybe see whether it's applicable to you or not. So my background has been in computer science. I did my BTech and MTech in computer science, and then I worked in an edtech startup for some time, and then I moved into teaching, and then I started doing my PhD in 2015, not in computer science but in an interdisciplinary area, educational technology, and I graduated in 2021, and I was a postdoc for some time at IIT Madras, and in April of last year I joined in the computer science department as an assistant professor. And my area is also an interdisciplinary area. I work in this area known as computing education research, which lies in the intersection of education technology, computer science, HCI. So not a core area, but yeah, so yeah, I just wanted to share this with you so that you all know where I'm coming from. And this is my research profile when I was applying, right? So many of you had questions about how many journal papers, how many conference papers, international postdoc experience, is it required? Yeah, so this is my profile, and so my experiences are determined by my profile, right? So yeah, I just wanted to share this with all of you. Right, so I'll be focusing on three things in this talk: where all to apply, and what documentation is required, and how to prepare. So regarding where to apply and what documentation, I think especially what documentation is required, I think the other panelist members, I think they are more experienced about talking about, you know, how the research statement should be and all of that. So I wanted to focus most of the talk on how to prepare for the faculty interviews. And so moving on to the first question, where all should you apply? I'm sure most of you know where to apply, right? So one is public universities like the old IITs, new IITs, then there are triple IITs, NITs, right? And then of course there are private universities like engineering institutions, autonomous institutions, liberal arts universities. That's where I am right now, right? And of course there are pros and cons on each side, right? Public universities, they are bigger, you get more seed grants, funding, PhD students, compared to private universities who are just starting off, right? You might not get PhD students at the start, right? But they are more open to hire maybe people from interdisciplinary areas compared to public universities, maybe, right? And yeah, and usually it's not as competitive as public university. So yeah, just for context, so I applied to 12 places and I got 5 interview calls, and I applied to 1 old IIT, 3 new IITs, 3 triple IITs, and 5 private universities. Yeah, and since my PhD research was in an interdisciplinary area, so there weren't educational technology departments in most places, so I mainly applied to the computer science department, and in some places to the design department, and some places had applied computer science departments, right? So I applied there. Yeah, so I'm telling all of this because yeah, so some of you had questions related to, does an international postdoc matter? It might, right? But I don't know, in my case, I still got calls even though I did not have any international experience. Yeah, moving on, so so what type of documentation is required? So here also I won't emphasize much on how you should prepare for each of those, because I think the other panelists will talk a lot more on that, right? So first of course you need the teaching statement, which is talking about what courses can you teach, what courses are you good at teaching, what can you offer in the future, a research statement which talks about your PhD research, what type of research would you like to do in the future, right? And of course your CV and recommendation letters from usually they ask 2 to 3 or maybe even 4 recommendation letter. Yeah, so I think I'll move on to the main part, which is how to prepare for a faculty interview, right? And I would say I'm going to focus on this question, right? So how can you increase your chances of getting an interview call, right? So I think that is the first step, or I think that's the most difficult step, because many places, right, and you will know as you start applying, that each university, or especially public universities, they get a lot of applications, okay? And who evaluates these applications? Who do you think evaluates these applications? Senior professors? Huh? Office staff? Okay. No, I don't think PhD students don't do that. Right, so it's mainly assistant professor, no sorry, not assistant professor, but professors, right? And you all know how busy professors are, right? So they have their teaching duties, they have to do their research, and this is a vital administrative service which they provide to the university, right? And they might be getting hundreds of such applications which have these research statements, teaching statements, right? And how can you differentiate yourself from the hundreds or thousands of applications which come, right? So that you can get an interview call at least, right? So I'm going to focus on that, right? And once you get the call, then it's about how you show your work, how you answer questions and all of that, right? So I'm going to talk about 3 P's, okay, which I think and which I hope will be useful for all of you. One is how you project yourself or how you put yourself out there. Okay, the second is positioning yourself for a particular place. And finally, perseverance. Okay, so projecting yourself, what does it mean? Okay, so all of you, I think most of you are PhD students? All, I guess. Okay. So we have been trained to identify a research problem, look at all relevant literature, address that problem, find a solution, publish, right? But what have we not been very good, very well trained at? Huh? Presenting?
Branding ourselves.
Huh?
Branding.
Branding ourselves. Yeah, but we are like scholars. Why should we brand ourselves? Teaching, yes. Self-actualization. Wow. Okay. I don't know if this panel will address that, but okay, right? But we have not been trained to, I don't know if this is a wrong word to use, but sell ourselves, right? Sell ourselves, sell the work which we are doing, right? And in that ways, we are like a startup, right? We do the solution or we develop the solution, but then we do not spend that much time and effort in marketing it, right? Marketing the work which we are doing, marketing our strengths, our skills, right? And I think that's very important, especially when you want to apply for faculty jobs, right? So what are ways in which you can do that? One is maintain a website. How many of you all have an actively maintained website? 10%, I would say, okay? And I don't know if all of you are applying, but I think the first step is to maintain a updated website, not a website which says I am a first year PhD student, right? Okay? And because I'll give you a reason. Why should we do that? Why do you think we should do that? Why take pains in maintaining a website and all of that?
If somebody wants to track
If someone wants to track you,
But that's mentioned in the Google Scholar, and like Google Scholar will give us like features.
yeah, Google Scholar will give a list of all the papers and all that I'm doing. Why? To maintain a website.
Yeah.
Okay, and so in our department, I and others, we maintained a blog as well, right? So the main reason is, right, to what do you think? Right? So this is an email I got. Okay, this is my web page. This is an email I got. I and my colleague got from someone in Europe, a known person, but we just interacted once. Okay, what is the last question? Okay, why do you think he asked that? Okay, so eventually we started talking, and that was like an opening for a postdoc position which I tried to get in, right? But that's not the point. The point is people look at your website because they don't have time to read your papers, right? Although everything is there, a website can act as a good portfolio, right? Which talks about the key projects you have done, some news, all your statements are there, right? So there are many things which a website can have, website or even a blog can have, which a simple Google Scholar page won't have, right? So I would urge all of you to start at least maintain your website, right? And there are several advantages. This acts as a portfolio. People might see your website and maybe recommend you to some other people, right? Another way is to use social media platforms. So how many of you use Twitter or Facebook or LinkedIn for publicizing your research, not for other things? Okay, the numbers are a little more. But what do we usually see on LinkedIn and all? Happy to share that I have, this paper has been accepted, right? Well, that's good, but that's needed, but talk a little more about your research in layman's terms, right? What is it important for? Who is it important for? What are the main results? What are the implications? Also talk to or connect with other researchers, right? Nowadays you will see a lot of people on LinkedIn, on Twitter, active researchers who are the top in their field, right? Ask questions to them, right? Comment on the work they have done. Okay, so another way is cold emailing. So yeah, I don't have time to talk about that, but yeah, cold email professors, PhD students where you like to apply to, ask them, am I a good fit here, right? And also ask your advisor or faculty to connect you to relevant people, right? So that's also an important thing. So the main point is put yourself out there, project yourself so that people know that you are there, that you are applying for faculty position. Okay, second, positioning yourself, right? And this is especially true for people in interdisciplinary fields. So I don't know how many of you identify with this, right? So basically the last line, basically I belong everywhere, okay? That's the other, the plus side of that, right? So if you are in an interdisciplinary field, right, look at faculty profiles in the departments you are applying to. See if you are a good fit, right? You need to revise your jargon and terms based on the department. So especially for me, if I'm applying to a computer science department, I'll use more computer science terms in my CV, in my research statement. But if I'm applying to a design department who doesn't know much about computer science, I should not use words like which are used in computer science, right? So look at courses being taught in the department, cold mail professors, right? And finally, the last point, apply widely, apply to different places. Very important, don't take rejection too seriously, right? There are a lot of factors, and you really don't know why it worked or it didn't, right? Take help from seniors and faculty, and that's it, yeah. So some advice, but you're running short of time, yeah. Thanks.
Thank you, Professor. Professor Prajesh. One announcement, please fill in the sign-in sheet, please do. Welcoming Professor Swati Manohar.
Thank you, Prajesh. I wish I listened to your talk before I started applying, because you might have also realized that while applying, in the process of applying, we want these answers to our questions from everybody. We will be asking several people. Nobody will be there to give exact answers. I am Swati. I'll give a very brief introduction of myself. I did my bachelor's in civil engineering, 2013 pass out from TKM College of Engineering, Kerala. I did my master's in structural engineering from IIT Roorkee. Then I did my PhD from IIT Madras. So I graduated in March 2020, just when the first COVID lockdown started. And I started seeking job market when it's at the worst. Nobody even knows how to handle new recruitments, not even how to handle their own work or daily routine. Then I started applying at several places, had failures. As he said, we have to take failures with a pinch of salt, but I had taken with a tub of salt as well. But then things worked out. I joined at IIT Gandhinagar for a program called Early Career Fellowship, which I found a very good program, which gives you teaching opportunity as well as independent research. So there will be new opportunities coming up like this. I couldn't go for a foreign postdoc because I was having a kid and I was handling him alone then. He's 5-year-old now. He's like my PhD, born along with my PhD. So very productive PhD, in fact. So I was also thinking, without a foreign postdoc, whether I badly wanted to become a faculty at an IIT only. So I was thinking, without a foreign postdoc, how do I do that? But then I figured out that it's not mandatory, but it is, once you do your postdoc, then only you realize that you are evolving into an entirely new different person, like your PhD. During your PhD, you will understand that you are now handling so much of independency. You are in dire need of finding your research, your publications. Similarly, in postdoc, what you are doing is you are handling many things at a time. You are being responsible not only for one project but several projects. You are handling family as well. And so postdoc will make you more enabled. It is more like a faculty position. That is why people are preferring postdoc. So here, when I was during my PhD itself, I wanted to become a faculty, so I was asking faculties, seeking answers for the same questions that I found in the Google form. Then during my postdoc period at IIT Gandhinagar, I even requested the dean that can I have some interactions, formal program like this with the new faculties, so that we want to learn what are their experiences and all. By the time they arranged it, I got this position. Then I was also a panel member in there. I was telling to Sahana also this. So what I thought, I was very excited while she called me for this program. I thought I can brief some learnings that I learned in the hard way. I can tell you a brief about the overall selection process, especially in IITs and NITs. And starting from your PhD, when you should apply and all, maybe in the panel discussion concerning the time. Then considering the overall process, you are preparing yourself, like projecting yourself, you are preparing yourself, submitting an application, waiting for the call. Once you called, you are called for the interview. Interview itself are 2 rounds. So this is the overall process. In that, you need your preparation in the first phase, PhD postdoc phase, when you are creating your profile so that it will fit to a faculty. Next is, once you are submitting the application, there comes the importance of research statement and a teaching statement. As you said, nobody has time to read entire your profile and understand better. They are not paper peer reviews, so it has to be crisp and clean and attractive. The third part is when you are getting shortlisted and called for an interview. What are the important things there? Yeah, maybe I'll stop with this now. During the panel discussion, I can take questions on these parts and I'll be happy to discuss those also. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Manohar. Moving on to Professor Ruth Malhotra.
To begin with, I think I find myself in a very uncomfortable position right now, okay? Because I am seen as this senior guy who sits on the other side of the table and flicks me off, right? Believe me, it's not like that. Yes, we all sit in various interview panels and talk to people. Now, I won't tell you much about myself because this is not about me, this is about you. This is about you trying to apply for positions, find positions that suit you, or just, you come here because of general interest. So I have been in IIT for about 2 years now, and I am a professor in the biosciences department. But I started in physics, then I did a PhD in physics, I did a postdoc in chemistry, then I did another postdoc in biology, now I'm a faculty in biology. So I've kind of, when there are panels where the applicant comes from a field which nobody understands, I'm on the other side very often. Okay, now that is a difficult job, but so let us not talk about the exact kind of background that you all have. Perhaps we can talk about that when we discuss. But my colleagues talked about how you should present yourself, how you should prepare, but I think one point was forgotten. Okay, and that's what I want to tell you, and that is really important. When you go to let's say you get an interview call, okay? Let's start from there. And you go to a certain department, and let's say you are going to meet some people, okay, who are the faculty. And you have that half an hour, and you want to tell them everything about yourself in that half hour. That is a problem, okay? Why? Because the person on the other side will feel that you never asked me about what I do. Okay, you just want to talk about yourself and what you have achieved, and that may be a lot, that may not be a lot. Okay, so don't make that mistake. When you apply to an institution or a department where you are seeking a position, please do your homework. Okay, find out what the department is like, not just the department. What are the other departments, particularly if you work in a, like my colleague showed you the last slide, if you are kind of in the middle or nowhere, find out about the different departments in that institution, not just the institution. Perhaps there are different institutions in that city. Okay, find out about all the people who could potentially have interest in what you do. Okay, beyond that, can you think of something unusual that, that's not your experience, but, look up the website and find somebody who, maybe does something which is disconnected from you, but look, if I did something this way, maybe I can come halfway and you can come halfway and we can do something together. That is really appreciated, okay? So don't let it be just about you. Yes, you can put up your website and you can put up your research proposal, but honestly, nobody reads your research proposal. Okay, in many situations. So you really have to go there and, in that, I'm not talking about your, so let's now come to your seminar. Suppose you will be invited to present a seminar, and there you will start showing all the gory details of what you have done, because you want to project, look, I have worked for 5 years, 6 years, whatever, and I have done so much, okay? That is also a bad idea. Don't do that, okay? Tell a story, okay? Tell something which connects to the people who are sitting who are there in the department and perhaps others. How you can connect to them. I was doing this and I thought, Dr. XYZ, my colleague who's sitting here, may be interested in such and such things which I have thought about, okay? So that is one point that I really wanted to make. It is just not just about you, okay? People on the other side should feel that you can become part of them, okay? Now, beyond that, there is the other issue of personality, okay? How are you projecting yourself? Are you projecting yourself as a person who is going to, just come in the morning and sit in your own lab or your own office and just do what you want to do? Or are you projecting yourself as a personality who will go out, take responsibilities in the department? Okay, so it's not just about teaching. There are 100 different things to do when you are part of a department. Somewhere when you talk to people, you have to tell them what kind of responsibilities you can take. Okay, and that is not just about teaching, maybe something to do with administration, something that you have, you have conducted some, admissions of students somewhere. Okay, so tell them in small ways, don't make it very obvious. Okay, but tell them in some, small snippets that here are the other kinds of things beyond my, pipetting or beyond my computer programming that I can do. So that is what I think. And then, of course, lastly, very often, if you do not get, if you apply for a position somewhere and you do not get an interview call, or you get an interview call and you don't go beyond that, it may have nothing to do with how you did there. Okay. In many places, suppose there is a department which has purchased a very large equipment, okay, and they have spent 7 crore rupees to buy that equipment, and they have one position, or maybe they have 2 positions. They would obviously want somebody who can use that instrument, okay, because they've invested a lot in that. And in such situations, it might happen that if you don't have that background, you may, not make it. So, and that's, you may have done much better than the other person who is going to use that instrument, but it's just that an investment has been made, and so in that sense, that's how things may go. So I think I will stop there. I don't want to tell you that you should do this and you should do that and you should do that and then you will succeed in a faculty interview. It doesn't work like that. Okay, I can only tell you about my experiences, what I felt, and today I have had some success, so I'm standing here, but that may not have been true either. Okay, so I will stop there, and maybe we can talk as a panel or something. Yeah.
Thank you. So now what we'll do is that we'll open up the question answer round, and we'll call all the panelists here. And but how we'll do this question answer round is that we have a huge response on our registrations for the questions, so we'll alternate between your questions and those questions. Okay, so I'll probably start with one of the questions. So what I've done is I have collated the questions, and I'm going to ask some of the questions that have been asked repeatedly by many of you. So one of the such question is, how does faculty interview differ from interviews for the industry positions? Yeah, so I don't think I'm in a very good position to answer that question, because I have never applied to the industry. I have been part of a few committees where you, as an industry, but I think the point that I made in the end is that the place where you are applying to, they have certain infrastructure and they want a certain kind of people that may be applicable much more to an industry situation, okay, where they have a certain pipeline for a drug or a certain product, and they really want people with a very focused expertise, and that may be more true in an industry interview. Maybe my colleagues have other ideas.
I mean, I don't have much experience with industry. I had attended one interview. There, we clearly know what we need in academia. You look for research and teaching, maybe with equal value. And as he said very specifically, that's equally important in teaching as well, the requirement of equipment or the acquired skill that you have during your PhD. So I always have a slide on the other responsibilities that I handle during my PhD. But in industry, of course, teaching might not be looked at. Since I have not been in such interviews, I don't know. I attended one interview which didn't care about teaching ability at all. It was only about research. And it was a research institution.
Actually, I got to know about an interview in IIT, and one of my colleagues got selected. So my point is, he said that they took the interview for in different parts, but for 5-6 hours. So that I don't understand. In industry I have never heard, but what do they assess? What do they see in 5-6 hours? They are taking different rounds, but yeah, I wanted to know what they are noticing and what they are seeing.
Okay, again, I never did an interview when I joined IIT Bombay. I was kind of invited. So, but anyway, so it is possible that this person, was it across different departments, these interviews, in the same department? It is possible that this person might have fit into more than one department, and therefore things got stretched. Okay, that is possible. Now, what is the interview? When you go to a department and you meet 6 or 7 faculty members, each meeting is an interview, right? So in any way, and if you are on an average, you would meet of the order of 10 people, okay? So your interview is anyway going to be 3-4 hours. So I do not know what your colleague exactly went through, but yes, take it as a long interview.
Another question is, what are some of the skills that particularly institutes look at when they are hiring a faculty?
Yeah, I think what Professor Roop said at the end, right? So many a times when we apply, right, we are still in that student mode. That I'm a student and the faculty are going to interview me. So, but I think we should come out of that, and we should realize that the person who is interviewing you can be a potential colleague, right? So that person is looking for whether you can work with that person, maybe in doing research together or teaching or doing administrative tasks together, right? So I think one thing which especially I faltered at the start was, considering myself as a student, right? You are no longer that, but you are a colleague, and the person interviewing you is a potential colleague. So I think that is one skill we should develop. So it's more like you are interacting to inform that person about what you're doing rather than trying to impress them with what all you have done.
Exactly. I was about to say that they look for whether you're having a vision rather than one single result chart. You would be, for example, when you're called for first interview, if you go back to the selection process, you're applying, you are shortlisted for first interview, which is department level interview. So the faculties from your department will be sitting around and you will be asked to give a presentation. Sometimes they'll ask for research and teaching presentation, sometimes only research presentation. They'll give you a time, say 15 minutes or half an hour. So you have to plan it accordingly. If it is 15 minutes, first 2 minutes you give for your introduction, then middle some 5, 6, 7 minutes for your PhD research, then your future goal and vision. So you cannot focus on your research only, and you are not a student anymore. It is not an APS, as he said. So they look for the vision you have. Even the questions would be predominantly from your research area, but they'll be looking at whether you are able to relate it, because you're going to work in this domain for another 30-40 years. So you should have a overall approach, a vision. You should have a long-term and short-term goals. Your application should be customized. You should know what you're going to do in this particular institute. You should do homework on the geography, where is that institute located. For example, I'm civil engineering. If I'm going to apply at IIT Mandi, which is cold weather region, I'll twist my some profile a bit with my past experience so that I can design structures which are durable in that environment. So similarly, the geographical funding, the centers which are available in that particular institute. So you should develop some kind of vision how you are going to work in that institute, giving an opportunity.
So one point I wanted to make, when you visit a department, don't make everything only about work, okay? When you meet somebody, ask what are the good restaurants in town, okay? Do something which is of genuine interest to, at least to people like me, okay? It should not just be about work. That is one thing. The second point is, the people on the other side should not feel, isko kahin bhi naukri mil gaya le lega, okay? You should come from a position of certain power, okay? It's not that, you're there and, just looking for a job, whatever the hell you get, you will take up a position. It should not be like that. You are killing yourself if you're doing that, okay? So you must present yourself with dignity, with confidence, and somewhere you should also draw a line that this is what I will take, this is what I will not take. Because honestly, it is possible that during your interview interaction, there might be some things which you will not like, okay? Now, you don't have to be too overt about it, but if you didn't like something, it is okay to, make that felt. The others should feel that you have some dignity, okay? I think that is really important.
This is regarding the interdisciplinary field that we take. Like if you pointed out that you have done your PhD from physics and then you move to postdoc in chemical sciences. So if a person who is having an interdisciplinary background, so in what ways he will be judged? Like he is going to be judged by his qualification in which discipline he has taken, or the research or the vision he is presenting to the department, because they have written like in the application process that BE, BTech in this particular discipline are relevant, but the relevant is like how much relevant.
So the short answer is that he or she will be judged by how well they can present all kinds of disciplines to somebody who is, in any of the disciplines.
This is regarding the application process. Like I'm applying.
How well have you explained your work? Does somebody who is not in, a particular discipline in chemistry or physics, will they get it? Okay. Or is your application, if you are claiming to be an interdisciplinary scientist and you are applying from that position, how well are you able to explain what you want to do to people outside a particular discipline? Okay, are you sticking to your own strengths and just staying there? I think, how well can you explain yourself to others? I think that is the main point.
It is not the discipline from where you have.
It is not the discipline, and whatever you're trying to do others feel it is important, right? They may not feel it is important, so it's your job to make them feel so.
After joining here, I was attending 2 interviews on the other side as well. So this is in engineering, what we see is, for in civil engineering, interdisciplinary, we are asking for people with civil engineering background because teaching is also important. If we are hiring you, you should be able to teach our BUG, BPG students also. So only that is the case. We are saying that however good vision you are, if you are not good for teaching any of the subjects here, but if you can make a statement that you can teach those subjects, you can say that I did that. This was asked during one of my presentation also. So how can you say that you can teach that subject? Because I was TA for that subject. I know what the subject is. I know I have worked on that. So there will be some reasons for the other side people also. They are hiring you for some purpose. So if you are understanding that purpose better, maybe we can address some of our questions.
So I have 2 questions. First, since there are many number of applicants, so the committee members have decided to rely on markers. For example, number of papers. For example, in many institutes, it is required to have 3 papers. It is required to have 3 papers to actually submit the format. But for example, in many cases, PhD student has a lot to offer to an institute apart from just a number of publication or something. So he might have done a lot of experiments or other works, or he may have worked with UGs or anything. So in certain case, he might not have markers. So what should be done in that case? One question. Second question, if he is at the age of 33 or 34 or something like that, and in some cases there is barrier like an age of 35 is required for assistant professor. So should he go for postdoc and then apply for associate, or should he try for assistant professor? So what should you advise? Now, how to go for assistant? What is the strategy for in going for assistant professor, and what is the strategy for going for associate professor?
Regarding research papers, unfortunately that's true. The first shortlisting mostly will have some number of research papers, at least in IITs I'm sure. NITs, it's again based on the overall credit points that you have. They give this much points for particular paper. I haven't applied, but I know the procedure, that's it. But at IITs, it again differs between different IITs. Some will have 3 papers, SCI Index, some will ask for 6, XCI, Scopus index. So there will be some cutoffs. Age will be one criteria. Even there are some IITs which says that you should have minimum 2 IIT degrees or foreign degrees for the first shortlisting. But it is not for every IITs. Not every institution will have their own shortlisting criteria. But this paper number is unfortunately a truth. This is expected because once you are becoming a faculty, you are going to guide your PhD students, so you should have that ability of writing papers. Maybe that's why. Again, if you are having that 4 or 5 papers or 3, you are shortlisted. Then you are shortlisted, you are having 5 papers, another person is having 20 papers, it might not make much of a difference. Even I have heard questions being asked that how can you publish these many papers from your PhD? That's not always seen as a positive. Okay, so there is an optimum number also. That's about paper. The other question, from whatever I have seen, I feel like if you're close to 30 or 31, 32 and you want to apply for an assistant professor, then that's what I have heard from my professors also. If you are less than 30 or close that, you can go for a foreign postdoc, you have enough time. Otherwise, it's better if you're applying for an assistant professor, apply immediately. So that you can, but for associate professor, I don't think I can answer that. I don't have an experience or I don't have even friends for that. At IIT Madras, we were a group of 7 friends. We actually formed something called Future Faculty Club, and we were discussing each other's progress. We were passing information to each other. So we were even approaching faculties and asking questions whenever we have doubt. So I think having a good network is also important when we are having people to help us. Seeking help is important. If we want help, we have to give help also. Having a good network also keep you close. And another question which I have been seeing in that Google form was making connections, is it necessary or not? It's actually not mandatory at all, but it is good to know that what is their requirement in that institute if we know people there. For example, writing to people even before we are getting shortlisted for HODs, we can say that this is our profile, we want to apply there. I have received responses saying that we want to hire but not in 1 or 2 years. So you will get responses. Sometimes they'll ask you to come and give a seminar. So this is important. If you have people, you know people, you can know the actual situation there, or whenever you have vacancies coming up. I hope I answered at least half of the question.
See, if you ask such a question, then there is a problem, okay? You're applying for an independent position somewhere. That kind of a question I get from the undergraduate students who I teach. What are you going to ask in my end sem exams? What are you going to ask? Will it be multiple choice? These questions you should not be asking at this stage. You should try to project your strengths, and you should try to find out what are the strengths of where you are applying. So that's where, somebody was saying, I forget who, that, somewhere there is a problem in that, the people who are applying for these positions, when you sit in the committee to evaluate them, you feel that some of them are just not ready yet. Okay, I don't want to say something about you specifically, but if people are asking such questions, then they have still not grown up. Okay, I'll be very honest with you.
There is no rigid guidelines anywhere, right? Where did you see rigid guidelines on postdoc? No, never IIT Hyderabad. I didn't have any postdoctoral.
Preferably below 35.
Age is there.
But that is considered.
Age is there. Age is preferably below 35 for all institutes. But I am asking about postdoctoral experience. I have seen in BITS. Okay. Yes. Yeah. It is less desirable, but it is not a guideline anywhere so far, postdoc. I have seen in BITS website that they have mentioned preferred 2 years of postdoctoral experience, but other than that, nowhere postdoctoral experience is a mandatory guideline so far. Age is below 35 is preferred or maybe mandatory, but under each advertisement you can see it clearly what are they looking for. But below 35 is something commonly applicable.
And what I've also heard is you can apply without postdoctoral experience, but then your academic grade pay will be a lower one, and then you will be on, I think, a probation or something. Everyone, no? Okay.
If you are having less than 3 years of postdoc, then it will be considered as on contract. After 3 years only, you will become permanent. But it's not like you will be thrown out of the institute or so. But 3 years, the grade is different. If you're having 3 years of experience, then you will get another grade. But for selection, postdoc is not compulsory so far.
So in some places where I applied, there was a research seminar and there was a teaching seminar. So prior to the seminar, they give you 2 to 3 topics. You have to choose one and take a class for 30 minutes or so. Yeah.
You will get time to prepare. You will be letting know the topic ready. No. In front of faculty is panel, but they will be asked you to consider themselves as UG student. You should be teaching to the level of UG students, but not at all IITs. At many places, as he said, it will be judged from how you are explaining your research. But at some places, they will ask teaching. NITs, they definitely have a teaching seminar.
People are in general very reluctant to explain things on the chalk and board. I will give you an example. 3 months ago I was in Germany and there were about 60 scientists from all over Europe, some of the very best in the world. I won't take the name of the meeting and all that. 60 people over the period of 4 days presented their work, okay? Only one of them did it on chalk and board. I'm not saying, and that was me. I'm not trying to say that I did something a great job or something, but I think people are in general reluctant to go to the board because we have gone so much into the PowerPoint mode now, okay, that people just don't want to do. And when I did it, it was really appreciated. Not because I was much better than the others, no, but because I had the courage to do it.
Teaching statement, basically, you have to portray what your philosophy is in general to teaching, how you'll interact with students. But more than that, I would say look at the institute you are applying to, see most of them have a course list of all the courses, see which courses you can teach, as well as propose similar courses for the PG or the PhD level. Yeah, basically courses what you can teach and what you can teach well and what you can teach in the near future also. So your question is, you are in the social science and you have experience in the development sector. So is the work on ground, does it count as teaching experience or does it influence you? Is that the question? No, I think you need to have teaching experience, specific teaching experience, right? Does development experience or on the ground field, on-field experience count as teaching?
No, it will not be counted as teaching experience.
Yeah, I think I think it depends on the person, so some people, are very specific. कोई भी IIT मिला चलेगा, right? Some people are, no, I prefer to be in the south or I prefer to be in the north, so I won't apply to places in the north, right? So I think it's a personal choice.
There will be some institute which are doing extremely well in your area. For example, in civil, if we are specialized in earthquake engineering, you would not want to come to south and work on that. You will not get a lot of exposure or projects there. So it can depend upon, my area is on protecting structures in marine environment, so also Mumbai was perfect for me. This was my first option. So it can depend upon like that, where you will get maximum opportunity if you are looking on career front.
Just a quick comment. You said about career growth, okay. So you are seeing it from the perspective of how will the institute help your career grow. You should also look at from the perspective of how will you help the institution grow. Okay, so the growth is from both sides. So can you do something different which the institution will value, okay, and will make the institution grow? It's not just about that, you are there, bhaiya de do kar lunga kuch. It has to be both ways, right?
He asked if backlogs are there in bachelor's or master's, will it affect your faculty positions? Nobody will look whether you will have a backlog or not, but if your grades are very, very poor, then that can have a reflection. Otherwise, it doesn't matter if you're having an 80 or 95. But if something is very noticeably bad, then they'll give a thought, okay, everything else is good, he's having excellent publication, but what happened to this grade? It's again subjective there, but it can be noticed. Otherwise, don't worry about backlogs and all, it doesn't matter.
So depends on what kind of a department you are applying to, right? It's hard to give because I know there are colleagues who have been hired in IIT Bombay who are coming from an industry background. So it depends on, what you can offer. It's very hard to give a generic answer to that question. Like in IIT, we have positions such as professor of practice, okay, where we are looking at people who are coming from the industry and, who can also guide, who can, make a connect between academia and industry.
She asked, number of years you take to complete your PhD, will it affect the selection procedure?
It could. Short answer. Shorter the better. And of course, you have to be productive. Yeah.
But that is dependent on the guide, basically.
Yeah, so nobody is going to ask you who was your guide. They are interested in you, not your guide.
So if it's 6 years or so, even though it's more than 1.5 years, but if you can show enough outputs from that, then it doesn't matter. That's what I think.
If you have taken 8 years to do a PhD,
Yeah,
then
definitely.
there is a problem.
Yeah, that's true. For IITs, some of the IITs where rolling advertisement is there, they look at all the cumulative applications twice in a year or thrice in a year like that, or once in a year. But they'll definitely consider all the applications which have come so far. Special advertisement, you will get a deadline for that, and then that will be processed.
And in that case, they are considering the age because you have applied earlier. Or it is the time of the application that you applied.
When they are shortlisting, they'll get back to you to ask your updated CV. Okay. Can I just mention one more point? So after all these, most of you are going to make it if you have that perseverance. Once you are getting in there, it's not so fun like we see during your PhD. But learn to sustain the pain that you have chosen. Whenever you are choosing some change, some new value to your life, it's a pain, be it a PhD, marriage, kid, whatever it is. But just embrace it and savor it, that's what.
Thank you all for coming. I think it makes us feel a little more important.
And now I invite the head of PCLD, Professor Sahana Murthy, to give a small memento to our family.